Hello, Tom Levecki here with the latest edition of the New Theory Podcast. I'm Tom Levecki, your host. I have a very special guest today, Ella Shae. She is the author of an Amazon, almost a bestseller, From Broken to Beautifully Broken, Turn Grief into Growth. Ella, welcome to the New Theory Podcast. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. She's a fellow Jerseyan. We're going to do this in conjunction with New Jersey Digest. So stay tuned for that. What's going to appear there, YouTube, iTunes, and the like. So we're going to jump right in. What inspired you to write this book? Because it's literally, in my opinion, it's a pretty compelling title, From Broken to Beautifully Broken. So what was the inspiration behind it, Ella?
So, I always was a writer. I was always writing in journals and things like that. But
Yeah.
when I was 38 years old, I was diagnosed with restrictive anorexia and had to be put in a treatment center.
Wow.
And it was there that I met, a group of people who thought the same way as me, who had the same, ideas around food that I never thought anybody else thought that way. So once I connected to these people and we had something in common, I felt like I could open up more when I had somebody who understood me. So my book was written so that the reader can have all of those relatable moments and feel seen and heard. So that's where the book comes from.
Oh, seems like a great inspiration. In a nutshell, what's the book about for our readers? I mean,
Um, so it starts when I'm 4 years old in a nearly fatal car accident. And it goes all the way up to like what I just said, being admitted for an eating disorder. And it basically chronicles my journey from then till now, all the traumas that I've faced from then till now, and how I always thought that life had just made me a victim of those traumas. But after being in treatment and giving myself the love and self-care that I needed, I then was able to look at those situations through a different perspective and find the beauty in the brokenness. So I pulled out the positive. Instead of being a victim, I changed the narrative and made my own story instead of being the victim of, all of the, and I say traumas, but it's not really traumas. It's anything. It's parenting, it's divorce, it's starting over. So I kind of just try to find the beauty in all of those things and teach the readers how to do the same.
I like that. And you find the positive even in a tough situation. So you kind of touched on it, but I want you to expound on it. For those people that are going through a hard time or went through a hard time or want to maybe prevent things from going worse when it's a hard time, what do you hope readers are going to take away, from your book after reading it?
I think first and foremost, I want them to find that relatable moment. As soon as you hear somebody's going through the same thing as you, it automatically gives you some sense of peace that you're not the only one going through it. I think a lot of times we're worried about the person, right? And the book is not just for the person who's suffering, but it's for the people around them as well.
Yeah.
So I really, really would not have made it through my treatment or even through some of the other things in life if I.
So with a little technical difficulty, we're going to kind of continue on that. So you were saying meeting people, finding strength. What do you hope people get from your book?
So my book is not just for the person that's going through a difficult time or through a trauma. It's for people who know them as well. So on my road to recovery with my treatment, it really was contingent upon who I surrounded myself with. So if I was surrounded by people who didn't so-called buy into these mental health issues, they were hindering my journey to freedom. So I really had to make sure that I had a strong support system who understood what I was going through. So I'm hoping my book can give a little bit of insight to a reader on how they may be able to help somebody they know who is struggling as a community, not just the person suffering.
Well, everybody always says they got a book in them, right? But
Yeah.
very few people, very few, take the time to actually, write the book. What was the most rewarding part about writing this book?
I think that within, my book has been out for less than 2 months, if you count when the ebook came out.
Yeah.
And I think since that book even just hit Amazon, I've already helped so many people with this book. I've been asked to speak at different events. I've been asked to work with the treatment center that I went to. And speak at their community events. So I think the most rewarding part of this entire process was that I actually am helping other people. It's something that I hoped for. It's something that I really thought might happen, but it actually did happen, which is amazing. And it's beyond what I hoped for.
Can you define broken and then go a little deeper on what is beautifully broken?
I love that you asked that because I feel like people assume that they know what that means, and I would love to explain it. So, everybody gets broken at some point in their life. You have these little chips, you have these little cracks, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. The ball just keeps rolling, and
Yep.
sometimes we find ourselves in this dark hole, and we don't know how to get out of it. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think that through life, we're always going to be a little bit broken, right? Like we carry that with us. It doesn't just go away.
Yep.
But you can find the beauty in it. And you can walk around with your head high knowing that, yes, I'm a little bit broken, but that's what makes me who I am. My scars are what makes me who I am, whether they're on the inside or the outside. And you just need to figure out the narrative of your own life and stop letting other people control that narrative. And that's the beauty in it all, is you can shed 1,000 skins in your lifetime if you want to. And you can start over as many times as you want to. And that's the beauty of it all.
Now, being from New Jersey, and we probably had similar backgrounds growing up, culturally, right? Where does culture help and where does it hurt? Not defining any specific culture, but like, is it, culture helps where it gives you like a guideline and helps you structure and that kind of stuff, and then where is it negative, where like you may find yourself different than what your culture is and find yourself and shed the skin that maybe your community is not as supportive, of. So maybe where does culture help and where does culture maybe hurt?
You know what? I think growing up, and I can really only speak to my own, nationality or culture, but in my family, we didn't show our emotions. We did not express, I mean, we yelled, we screamed, we expressed our emotions in that way. But we didn't really, we don't cry. We didn't cry in my house. You don't cry over something that upsets you. And I think that's the problem, is that a lot of these cultures have these, preconceived notions, right, of how you should act or how you shouldn't act, and you're not staying true to your own emotion. So yes, you should cry. If something is making you sad, you should cry, because that is going to help you release that emotion instead of suppressing it, which then becomes anger. Don't want to keep that anger trapped inside of us, because then we become angry adults wondering why we feel this way. So address the emotion as it happens. And that really is a part of my book also, is that we need to teach our children healthy emotions. We need to teach them how to express their emotions in a healthy way and be proactive instead of reactive. So if we can teach our children at a young age, outside of what we culturally think, outside of what our families have instilled in us, just teach them how to express themselves in a healthy way, we may be able to eliminate the amount of people that have these types of reactions as adults.
Who should read this book like immediately?
Everyone.
Okay.
Honestly, everyone can relate to this book in one way or another. If you're a single mother, you can relate to it. If you're a parent, you can relate to it. Divorced, single, starting over again. I mean, I have an entire chapter on grief and loss and the different ways you can experience grief and loss. And I know that everyone in this world has experienced that in one way or another. And when you're grieving, it is very hard to find, the beauty in that. But I do teach you a way to make it a little bit easier. And it's helped me through a lot of grief has been my hardest thing. And this has really helped me. So you got to read the chapter on rainbows, sunrises, and sunsets.
What's your favorite part of the book?
That chapter, actually.
Right.
It reminds me, that time is a thief and you choose what to do with your time. It can be spent doing the important things or it can be wasted. So you really need to choose wisely. And that chapter reminds me every day to spend time with the things that are important in my life.
You did a lot of press so far for a book being only out 2 months. That's how I found you. What question have you not been asked yet that you wished you were asked about the book? And you can welcome to give the answer, obviously.
Well, actually, one of them was the title of the book. No one had asked me really where that had come from. So that's something that no one has asked me. And also, no one really talks about how it's affected, my relationship with the people in my family. I really do tell a lot. I expose like my raw emotions are in this book, and not everyone is going to love what I have to say. And it has affected some relationships that I have in my life. Unfortunately, I have to look at the bigger picture. And if somebody is upset with something that I may or may not have implied in my book, then maybe they need to take a step back and realize that their actions maybe shouldn't have been done in the first place. So yeah, so that's something that people really haven't asked me. For 90% of people are supportive and they're like, "Oh my God, I never knew that about you." And I can't believe you wrote that in a book. And then there's a few people who, aren't so happy with what I have to say. But if it's helping people, then I'm okay with that.
We're going to conclude soon, but I just kind of thought of another question. What type of questions will people kind of ask themselves by reading this book? So I'm thinking it's going to stimulate kind of some introspection. What questions do you think people are going to ask themselves when checking out this book?
I think they're going to question their boundaries that they maybe have with people. They're going to question who should sit at their table, right? There's a lot of people that you keep in your life and their stuff becomes your stuff. And it doesn't need to be that way. I talk about how I'm very empathetic and that has often gotten me in trouble. Thinking that I'm helping other people so much is often what gets me into these dark places. So we need to know how to have empathy for people while still giving ourselves a safe space to not be hurt. So I think people will reevaluate some of their relationships. And I think that some people will find relief, in the advice that I have to get them through those situations.
I think that no matter where you are in your life, I think about 3 years, 5 years, whatever that is, I do think you should have some type of relationship inventory. A good
Hmm.
friend of mine, one of my best friends, has this rule: if he doesn't talk to you in like the last 6 months, he doesn't invite you to the kids' parties. He doesn't, that kind of stuff. Like he doesn't. He just like not cuts you off, but like just does not. Maybe stops reaching out. If you stop reaching out, or if a kids' party is happening, he doesn't invite them. He's like, you know what? If you were in my life the whole time, great. God bless, but I care about current relationships. So yeah, so this is broken from broken to beautifully broken. Turn grief into growth. How to use dark times as a catalyst for change. Ella Shae is the author. She's been very generous with her time and last minute coming on the New Theory podcast. I'm going to put the Amazon link below for those listening on audio. We'll have a link there as well. You can purchase a book. It's on Kindle, and there's a paperback, I believe. And how can people find you who want to learn more about you? What are your socials, and what's the best way to contact you, Ella?
My Instagram is ellashae_author. And my website is ellashae.com. If you go to my website, you can see all my speaking engagements, my book signings, and that also gives you my social. So it's easier to find me if you just go to the website.
Yeah, and I'll put a link for that below. Ella, thank you so much for your time. I literally, I was so excited. I had you on even before reading it. I'm going to order the book as soon as I get off, and I'm really excited. And I got a feeling I'll be sharing it with friends. Thank you so